So Doug Graham falls from grace. The Woodstock Fruit Festival basically has disowned him. He's no longer welcome to participate in future events. And I'm sure Durian Ryder Harley is feeling vindicated today. But I don't want to get into all the dirt surrounding this event. And I mean, we pretty much know what's behind everything here. And if you don't, you can look it up. It's all been documented. Everything is open. That's, I guess, the beauty, or maybe it's the curse of the internet these days and social media, is that nothing can be hidden. And this is all out in the front for everybody to see. But I'm not going into those details. It's juicy gossip, no question about it. But what I'm more interested in exploring here is what happens to leaders like Doug Graham, who reach a level of influence and power, and they're able to bring people together and start this movement, and then the very movement they basically built up rejects them in the end. What happens here? And I think there are plenty of examples to draw from. I mean, go back to when Richard Nixon was president of the United States. I mean, he got caught up in the Watergate scandal, and that took him down. He resigned as the president. And then, you know, if you look in the 70s and 80s, you had the right-wing born-again Christian movement that took off. There was like a revival of Christianity, and there were some dominant leaders that rose to the top in that movement, one of them being Jim Bakker of the PTL Club, the television show that he originated, him and Tammy Faye Bakker, his wife. And they had a huge following. They were basically, I would say, the most influential out of all of them at that time. And Jim Bakker even started building his own village, his own kingdom, so to speak, like a heaven on earth kind of scenario where Christians could go to this place and enjoy everything Christian. It was like you had a Christian amusement park, and I think they were even building places where people could live there as well. But as he grew more powerful and more influential, it all went to his head, and he was caught in a sexual scandal with a woman named Jessica Hans, and she exposed him, excuse the pun, to the public. And he denied it to the bitter end, but the evidence was there, and he finally admitted his sins, and then other things started to unfold about his accounting practices, and next thing you know, he's up on criminal charges. He ended up in prison, and his kingdom that he worked so hard to build totally collapsed. And he also lost his wife in the process as well. Then there was Jimmy Swaggart. Do you remember Jimmy Swaggart, the fire and brimstone preacher, the no-nonsense preacher? Well, he was caught hiring prostitutes for his pleasure. And but he took a different strategy. Instead of trying to deny it, he came clean before his congregation and his followers on television. He confessed his sins, and he prayed to God on public television. He prayed to God for forgiveness, and his congregation and his followers forgave him. And as far as I know, he still carried on afterwards. So, you know, you get examples of great leaders, and there's probably, you can go through all of history and find these individuals who, and they tend to be men, I find. I don't know too many women that end up in that kind of same kind of scenario, but they tend to be men that work very hard for their cause that they believe in. And because they're so diligent and hardworking, they gain a following, they gain a movement, and they build something great. but their egos are so big and their sense of self-worth is so exaggerated that they're just setting themselves up for a fall. And then they start behaving in manners that are inappropriate and offensive. And at some point it takes them down. Their own actions take them down. And this is what happened to Doug Graham. Now, what I'm curious about is, why do we as humans have this need for these leaders? Why? You know, this is a reciprocal thing here. This is a two-sided story. It takes two to tango, okay? The leaders need their devoted followers. And why do we as individuals become vulnerable to these people? And I think, you know, if I were a psychologist, I would probably say that it's to do with like a father figure. Someone that comes to us with answers. We live in this uncertain world. And with respect to Doug Graham, it was in the area of health and fitness. And, you know, when you're living in the West, eating the standard American diet, you're becoming sick and you're having health issues. And this guy comes with all the answers. And he is certain about what he's saying. You feel reassured in that. It's a security blanket. You want to lean into him and rest and find peace. That finally somebody knows what they're talking about. They have the answers. And it saves you the trouble from having to do all the searching, right? You just go for someone who's already done the work and you trust that their answers are correct. And it's a mistake that we make as humans over and over again. The reality is, nobody has all the answers. And this world is uncertain. It's chaotic at times. There's so much crazy stuff going on right now. It's scary, isn't it? But we as individuals have to learn how to think critically for ourselves and try to come up with our own answers to the problems that we are faced with. Now, we can learn from these leaders. We can learn from many sources, but we must learn in a critical fashion, not just in an all-embracing and accepting manner. It's too dangerous these days to do that. Be your own teacher. Be your own guru. And become robust so that you can stand up in this chaotic world, that you can be strong and say to yourself, I will survive and I will thrive in this world today. That's all I've got to say. Take care.